What's up, Matt from Urchfab. Today I'm going to be making a start on the bike frame. The first job that I'm going to tackle is making a new head tube. Alright, so I've got some bearings that actually fit the triple clamps. Got some Dunlops. These are 52mm OD, 25mm ID. This is 25mm. So just going to cut a length for this, turn down the ends to take the bearings and then skim a bit of the excess diameter off of this. Alright, so I want to turn down the diameter of this so it gives it like from kind of like there to there. Thin it out a bit. Obviously the tricky thing is being able to hold that to where I can actually work on all that centerpiece. So what I'm going to do is stick the bearing in. I'm going to stick the bearing in the end of there, and then I've got a I've got my jig all set for building the new frame. The old bike kind of sat with the, if you were looking sort of straight onto the bike, the bottom rail of the frame was kicked up, so the whole frame was sort of tilting back. So what I've done is I've set the old frame into the jig to get the head angle and the height of the rear axle, and then I've raised this front mount by 50mm, just to drop the front, and hopefully that should be enough just to level the bike out. And I basically want this bottom rail of the bike to be close to level when the bike's fully weighted, sat on. So that's how I've got that set. So I'm kind of going to copy most of the dimensions of this. I'm keeping the length exactly the same. This is quite stretched out as it is. Makes for quite a long bike, which I do. I like the look of it. So the basic layout is going to be a sort of tray in the bottom, which will be cut out of a flat piece of steel with some flat sides on it, which will basically replicate this section here. So we'll mount all the engine to this plate. We'll mount the battery and everything in behind here like this was, but differently. And then from this we'll have one piece coming up to the headstock instead of two rails. We'll have one piece coming out, and then a backbone which will come probably a bit higher than this, straight down to meet behind the engine on this plate, and then the rear sections. And I think I want to have the backbone a little bit higher and then have these rear sections so they come out a bit below, just to give it a different kind of look instead of this kind of, this is like a traditional sort of chopper frame, if you like, where you've got one line from the head tube all the way back to the rear axle. So I want to do something a bit different from that, just so it looks a bit different. Right, so this is going to be like the bottom sort of tray of the bike. And then I've got these which are bent. These two mounts here are central to the engine. These back ones are offset. So I've got these bent exactly the same. And these are going to sit like that. I need to get that onto these two mounts dead square. Then I can bend these two. So now we need to continue this backbone. So it comes down, meets with that, and then we need the flats obviously, which will give this the strength. So we'll have a flat piece curved around there, which will connect into the front of that. Now I'm going to put a piece of solid bar through this hole with 2 mounts coming off for the front engine mount. And then we'll have the same thing off the back. So the engine will brace the frame as well and give the frame some additional strength. Alright, so that's a pretty good start to the frame. Something I don't like about it already is these holes, and I f***ed up my measurements somewhere, because this hole, this one, should have been level with this bolt hole. So that hole, I mean the bracket could always tip up a little bit, I suppose, but yeah, I'm not really sure on the holes. I think I could have done something a bit more, just a bit more interesting, like maybe just kind of like slots, or just something a bit more interesting than holes. So I might redo something with that, I don't know, I might not. The tank's going to be here, so that will sort of get rid of all of these holes. Don't know. I have to see how much steel I've got as well. I might not have enough to cut all that again anyway, but if you're wondering why I didn't cut all that in one piece, didn't have enough space on my table to do it, so that's why it's done in 2 sections. And if you're wondering why I didn't just make this out of tube. The whole idea of the bike is to see if I can make a whole frame out of flat sheet steel, all cut on the plasma table. Would have been much easier and much lighter to make it out of tube, and I've spent the last 10 years bending and notching tube, so it would have been a very easy for me to do it that way. But this is just to do something a bit different, so that's why it's not being done out of tube. So next video I'm going to get all the rear sections cut and hopefully have all this sort of pieced together. I'm going to get a load of U-bolts, like exhaust clamp U-bolts, 65mm ones, so that I can clamp all this with and get all the joins really tight before I weld it all. And having all these slots, I've got like little cut-out slots and then like notched pieces on these, so that it all just slots together and it holds everything like perfectly in line. So even just sat sort of loosely clamped together, it's all fits really nicely. It's going to be it for this one. Just watching. See you on the next one.